esteemed speakers from the Association of Indian Medical Services, Mr. Rajiv Nath. We have with us Ms. Uh, uh, Chandrima Chatterjee, who's the Secretary General from the Confederation of Indian Textile Industries. We have Mr. Kajal Devnath, who is also a chairperson for the North Zone of All India Food Processors Association. We welcome you, sir and ma'am, to this session of webinar, and we are looking forward to your discussions and our viewpoints on our theme today, which is specifically called for and how industry is going to look at what are the perspectives for the regulations and conformity assessments. And within this, we're looking at, especially if you're talking about use of third-party private CAGs or by regulators in terms of how for the audits or testing inspections. Uh, but if you look at globally, many of these sectors were there in the regulations, and much more regulations are being brought in, and more sectors are coming in. It is, if you look at the regulator who is monitoring and controlling the trade and business practices of businesses through licenses and post-market surveillance practices. And in the regulators are basically defining the essential and basic minimum standards on quality and safety to be practiced by the business while manufacturing products. So that's how the technical regulations were working, and these were designed to protect the interests of the common man. Uh, that was the objective of the technical regulations on a global wide scale. However, regulators depend on the third party conformity assessments done by the agency certifications on quality and safety standards while issuing the license to businesses or depend on audit reports issued by the third party agencies for on enterprise QMS or test reports or even the third party series. But in the last years, few last years, there has been globally in the markets, we can see a lot of failures happening in the testing, especially to quality and safety for the products which are being exported from India. Primarily, this is not a very good scenario if you look also toward the domestic front, also where we quality certifications and test reports are not in conformity. And if you look at by any of the third-party conformity assessment agencies, they also run the scanners. So we can see these recent episodes on the pharma drugs quality and the safety compromises where the regulators are now doing direct inspections or even auditing manufacturing facilities. And these risk-based inspections are conducted by regulators actually opened up a Pandora box because the state of affairs that the QMS implementations or the lack of such implementations within the industry is not in a very admirable stages. Now, however, even if the manufacturing factories they do have certain qualifications and they can show the test reports, but these are certain different facade we can look at. But these episodes over the years has actually reduced the trust levels which is there in the marketplace of the third party certifications. And such effectiveness of audits conducted by such agencies also is a questionable for us. And though the demand for regulation says that we need to do direct audits and inspections, and you can't rely without the third party audits. So that's been a situation which we all need to understand. So it is time that the regulators and the regulator says we basically create an in-house conformity assessment teams or we train their workforce on conformity assessment practices so that some effectiveness of any third party can be actually audits can be done from the certifying agencies. And also the ultimate responsibility to offer assurance on the products which would be lying in the market only by the regulators, and no other agency can be responsible for these assurances. So the conversation to create is basically done to let us understand the industry perspectives about the effective model in such best conformity assessment practices can be implemented across the sectors also. So the question arises that whether we should have regulators who would rely on the third party agencies, or should regulators start focusing directly on the conformity assessment audits with a well trained and in-house teams? What are these questions that we need to start addressing, and we start need to debate on them, or to talk on them and go ahead about it? So that was the main theme that we were looking at, how we can look at and what we can talk about. And in this discussion forum, we have our speakers who are here, who will guide us and tell us into this particular session. I would like to thereby invite our first speaker, Ms. Chandrima Chatterjee, to talk about us on this particular topic. To introduce you to Ms. as first speaker, I would like to introduce a background to all our audiences. Aarti, could we have the slide, please? I hope the screen is visible to all. Ms. Chandrima Chatterjee, who is now the Secretary General Confederation of Indian Textile Industries, she has about 24 years of experience in research, policy, advocacy, and the trade facilitations. Besides working on the trade facilitation competitiveness of chain value, we also have her text in the competitive issues for the textile value chain. She has been associated with us in scaling sustainability and responsible business initiatives, recognizing the growing role of these as competitiveness tools. Ms. Chandrima Chatterjee has worked on the domestic and export sector also, and dealt with issues of the entire textile value chain through her earlier stints at AEPC, CITEI, and national bodies like ASSOCHAM, and she'll be also lending her expertise for an overall growth of the textile value chain in line with CITI's vision of the strong textile industry in India. Ma'am, it's a pleasure to have you on board with us, and we would like you to take the stage and tell us about your topic. Ma'am,
Thank
over
you,
to you.
thank you, Mr. Mathur, and a big apology to everybody because I'm on the road and this may have a little bit of a noise impact on this. Just couldn't manage my timings, but still, I'm very happy to be part of this. First of all, I'm so happy that this initiative is being taken. As a representative of the textile value chain, this is one area I think today. Sorry, I think, yeah.
Yeah, we lost you for 2 seconds. That's okay.
Yeah, so I think to first give, since I'm a policy practitioner and representing a body which looks into the entire textile value chains, all kind of concerns, be it manufacturing. I would for to say that this is an area that has always been important because this is a sector which is very export oriented. But now it is all the more important because I think the issues of standards, both voluntary and mandatory, have been growing. Early, it was largely limited to the export sector and dependent largely on private standards, given we were largely exporting to the big brands and buyers. But it gradually became state level regulations, and today in the domestic sector also we have a huge standards requirement. Means well deserved so, because we are a growing market also for textile products and its intermediaries. So maybe I will not be extremely technical in in the issues that you just discussed about which is a better framework, a third party or this. But I would like to take this opportunity first to discuss the landscape of this for the textile sector, and what are the present asks of the industry, the challenges, and kind of some requests to the standard setting bodies and the consultation bodies like yours, as to how the industry looks at further facilitation of this growing requirement. Because as we know that the sector's social and environmental compliance issues have been an important challenge. Initially, it was more of the social issues. There were several social compliance challenges, but that's something that I think the industry has been working on for quite some time, and today the industry is pretty aware. The audit processes have also been much more streamlined today, with a growing recognition more about the process, what we call as the management systems approach to dealing with many of this, because the growing requirement was that to sustainably manage these, there has to be a management systems approach to this. So to that extent, the process of consultation, as also the process of auditing, has changed a lot. So be it things like good working conditions, the child labor issues, the wage issues, the human rights issues, there has been a lot of understanding on that. What is now the industry's challenge, if I say in the last 4-5 years, has been the growing emerging requirements on quality and environmental standards. Quality standards were always there, but if you're looking at the domestic landscape, you today have more than 200 quality control orders in the textile space, which surely the industry needs more understanding, capacity building and training on, and before they are exposed to the regular auditing that it would entail. And on the environmental space, a lot of the requirements are so data driven and so technology driven that a big challenge is for the bulk of the industry, which is in the SME sector, for them to be able to deal with it in terms of not just meeting them from the technology perspective, because a lot of this environmental things require the certain kind of technologies, many of which are today, of course, present, but many of will also have to be brought in, and there knowing it correctly will be very important, because there can be a lot of financial implications on that. But more important is the reporting requirements, and I think that's a space where a lot of help from the consultants who are looking into the standards will be really required, because this is a space that is still being defined, and there are multiplicity of reporting formats and requirements. The right guidance on the reporting formats, which is feasible for the MSMEs also, the right kind of guidance based on the requirements, because means it has to be more nuanced to the requirement, be it the country that where the product is being placed or the partners you're working with, and also what is the adaptability of the enterprises, those requirements. I think in all these spaces, the a consortium like yours can play a big role, and which is why I was very interested to be part of this, because I thought it will be good to put in place the industry's requirement, because many a time the engagement is at a very short term ad hoc level, but since it's a sector that has deep socio-economic impact and badly needs to have a better positioning uh, and have a competitiveness tool in terms of these, because India's competitiveness today is not in cost. We are trying to position ourselves as a responsible, quality conscious and growing market and supplier for textile products. So from that point of view, greater awareness creation and capacity building is needed, because I think as the largest producer and consuming nation for textiles, all these standards and the certification requirements will have to be a little more grounded in our country's perspective. The reason I want to highlight this is because as of now the journey has been completely reactive, because most of the standards are coming from other countries, most of the certification processes are coming from other countries, most of the certifiers are coming from other countries. So many a time a lot of well intended initiatives are not recognized in the right sense. So there is a huge need for that kind of an engagement with industry to appreciate a lot of initiatives that go towards, if you're talking of the environmental, of the material management, of the alternate technologies being used for resource optimization, be it water, be it energy. And many a time it may not be falling into the certain box of the advisories, but they can be extremely sustainable based on the Indian perspectives. So these are the areas actually where it will be great to have more discussion what the industry is presently doing to capture what are the good practices. There are a lot of good practices that can also be documented, because today it's about not just doing, it is also about demonstrating what good you're doing. And to that extent, capacity building of even reporting and capturing these good practices will be very relevant. And besides this training, so that the industry knows the business case of why they are doing this, why they are putting certain impact based, target based action in place towards ESG, quality or other requirements, and of course make them more adaptable, replicable, and feasible for business continuity point of view also. So that, though it does.
I think, ma'am, you got muted again.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, please, please.
Sorry, was I audible or was I on mute?
Yeah, it got muted again. Please.
Okay. So I said, so I thought I should initiate the from this perspective as to how your consortium and this association of the consultants have a huge role to play, because the industry has ambitious targets. It has to grow. It has to, in fact, leverage the forthcoming FTAs in a much more optimal way. And all these require a far greater understanding and capacity building. Before you come to the word audits, the trainings and awareness programs are more important, and there I think there's a huge space to work on. So I thought that's the first thing I'll place. Thank you.
Muted, Atulji.
Yeah. Getting the hang of it also. The fact is very true that the capacity building is the need of the hour, and definitely there is a huge roles and huge demands to be addressed to. And going ahead, we definitely need every sector needs to address in not just the emerging requirements, but also to ensure that the technological spaces are getting mapped to each other, with ensuring that sustainability is met, and of course, the, uh, the correct technology has to get imbibed to involve the right frameworks in place also. So we are very true. We can definitely look into these aspects, and I was looking in case there is some questions or rise from the audience, then we can address them by the speakers. Are there any questions that we can?
I would also, before the questions come, I would also like to add this
Yeah.
thing, that when you're talking of what structures will work better, I think third party has come in place simply because of the scale at times, the time sensitivities, and the need to reach out to. After all, the industries are very dispersed in India, so the logistical challenges. So I think both the models have their merits. Whatever works best in terms of the time constraints, the financial constraints, and of course the credibility constraints would be relevant. For a sector like textiles, which is extremely cost competitive and extremely linked to the global market, both of them and a balance between them is what has to be looked into always.
True, very true, very true. Uh, in case there is any other thoughts that our panel members can also add, Mr. Rajiv, you like to have a word on this?
I just would like to ask a quick question to Ms. Chatterjee. Coming from a textiles and the garment space, the industry is subject to a lot of customer audits, buyer audits, second party audits, which we always felt, frankly speaking, that's been our experience as consultants, the more stringent, more focused, and those audits have a lot of depth actually. And so this is one sector. There are few sectors which are repeatedly subject to this buyer audits and customer audits, especially buying houses. Sometimes they're also engaging third parties, but they also do direct audits. That's something which we did not touch upon. I mean, did not address in this session. We want to have your views because since you have experience in that sector, so would like your views on
Yeah,
second party
absolutely.
audits, how effective they are.
The word we heard 10 years back was audit fatigue. Now it did go, but it has been supplemented by something called reporting fatigue and training fatigue now. So of course the industry is extremely bogged down by some of this, and in fact the costs of this, it varies from 1% to 5%, depending on the scale of operations. Of course, the smaller the scale of operation, the larger the incidence of this. And for a sector where the margins are between 5 to 7, 8%, all these matter. All these small costs matter. Besides the time and the limited bandwidth that the suppliers have for doing all of this. But multiple attempts at this have not been able to address this issue. Maybe a lot of the buyers have their own perspective on this because of the wide spectrum of what they want to look into. But thankfully, there have been some initiatives towards convergence of majority of the requirements. You have SLCP kind of platforms which are trying to be more self-assessment and common data platforms from which people can pick up. To that extent, I personally see, since I have been with this for a long time, that there has been some reduction in that. A little more appreciation for the process, the gradual improvement processes also, which was completely not recognized at one point of time. It was only 1 or a 0. There was no in-between grades that were given for this. So there has been an improvement on that, and I think with more engagement with the brands, these have improved over time, and we can only just hope for better things to improve. What more to say on that?
Just one more question, because you did touch upon this self-declarations and self-audit. This is something which, as consultants, we have been pressing, because somewhere the third-party audits are not inspiring, and then even the regulatory audits has got its own challenges. If you look at financial regulations, by and large, most of this are moving into self-declarations and self-certifications more. Maybe I guess it will work, make the industry self-declare to the compliances and all that, and the owners and their ultimate responsibility of offering the assurance goes back squarely to the industry. Don't you think it will work, ma'am?
Absolutely. And self-declaration actually has intended it more understands and does that. Of course, people
Your voice is
the carrot works better than the stick. So
sorry.
I think your voice
I
is
said the
breaking up.
carrot works better than the stick.
Absolutely.
Audible?
Maybe you can turn off your video, ma'am. It's better. It's video which is causing the issue. Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah, this is better. Yes, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Because we lost you in between. Can you please repeat?
Yeah. Yeah, I said the carrot is always better than the stick if you're looking at a journey, because incentivization works. So, we have ourselves, in my earlier role in Apparel Export Promotion Council and now, found that
Ma'am, I think the quality of your voice is breaking again. So
Maybe
maybe
you
if you
turn
can
off
switch
your
off
video,
your
ma'am, it will
video,
work.
then it will be better.
let me try. Is this better, or
Yeah.
do I try after some
Yeah,
time?
maybe turn off the video. This is better, ma'am. You can continue. Yeah.
Yeah, so result of such initiatives is that when there is a better business case built into this self-regulatory mechanisms, they work very well. Firstly, they are more sustainable because the supplier has better understanding and appreciation of what they are doing, how they are managing, how they are involving everybody, the worker, the managers.
Lost your voice again, ma'am.
Wherever you're very correct. So if you see, a lot of brands are adopting this now, and this expanding their supplier base, because the normal audit process is time.
Ma'am, actually, voice
is always the way forward.
not audible, ma'am.
I think we lost her again.
Maybe I think
I think so. We can take it up a little offline because I believe she has a.
Maybe we'll just continue after some time, ma'am, because we really wanted to have your views, very pertinent views, actually. I hope you don't mind because it's cracking in between. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. I welcome Mr. Rajiv Nath for his speech and his discussion on our topic. Sir, I would like to introduce Mr. Rajiv Nath, who is the Managing Director of Hindustan Syringes and Medical Devices Limited, and is also the Forum Coordinator for All India Medical Services and in the Medical Device Industry. Aarti, can we have his profile, please? Thank you. Sir has been in the Association of Indian Medical Device Industry. It's an umbrella association of Indian manufacturers covering all types of medical devices, including consumables, disposables, equipments, instruments, implants, electronics, and diagnostics for over 400 members nationwide. He is also the president of All India Syringes and Needles Manufacturers Association and also a board member of Kalam Institute for Healthcare Technology. Sir is a member of National Medical Device Promotion Council and serving as the chairman, Technical Committee, ICMA certification by QCI. Mr. Rajiv Nath is a member of the Expert Advisory Group for Biomedical Devices and Technology Development by Department of Science and Technology, and he is also the member of Medical Devices in the Expert Advisory Group to CDSCO for Regulations in India. Sir is a member of the Steering Committee of the National Biodesign. Sir, we welcome you to be on board with us and thank you for giving us valuable time. I would like you to please advise you to company rules.
Thank you, Mr. Mathur, for the kind introduction and the opportunity to speak to the audience over here on a topic which is close to my heart. I will just share the screen and make a presentation. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can.
Yes.
So, very pertinent question, and in medical devices, it's more so because in the past we have been inspected, and now we are enjoying in certain product lines third-party certification, and we've seen the advantages how it's been done internationally, and the merits which are there, which I'd like to discuss in the presentation now with you. So this is our vision from India to be in the top 5 manufacturing hubs globally. And now the government shares our vision and has come out with the medical device policy in April of this year. This is our vision for a regulator. We want him to be more like a facilitator, like a gardener, to nurture the young industry, which is a sunrise industry. And then later on, after making us responsible, then to make us accountable. But first, we have to plant the seeds and they have to remove the weeds. Then you have a nice green garden. This is typical to what India is. When we have regulations or we don't follow regulations, or when we don't have regulations or don't respect regulations, this is what we have. We create chaos. Everybody tries to go faster, takes shortcuts, but actually these are not shortcuts. It actually slows us down. And when you follow a discipline which is there imbibed by regulatory bodies and regulations worldwide, and this actually helps industry to actually go faster. So you can see this is a typical case in Germany, even more advanced than USA and Japan, whereby whenever they have an accident, all the Germans and all the people what they're driving on German roads, they know the rules. They have to immediately move to the left and right of the road to leave the center path free for the ambulance and the emergency vehicles, the police, to reach the bottleneck and the accident site, to clear up the bottleneck as soon as possible. And we know how it happens in India when we go across the road and 2 lines become 3 lines, 3 become 4, and then we go on the other side of the highway and we block the road and create a jam for everybody. So expectations, road responsibility is very, very important. And once you follow that, you can actually go faster. And like in Germany, there may not be a speed limit, there might be a minimum speed limit. So you don't drive less than 120 kilometers per hour on the highway. And in most cases, there's no maximum speed limit. So in medical devices, unfortunately, we've always been import dependent. Same is the case now. 70 to 80% import dependency. Nearly 1/3 of that comes in from USA and China. And there's generally been a lack of trust in Indian medical devices, which we are not trying to turn around. So the good manufacturers over here, they have been challenged. They have been wanting to have respect for Indian medical devices, and they've used international voluntary certification to put forward their credentials. So the third-party regulatory certifications and approvals and certifications and auditors coming from overseas has helped to bring in some trust for these manufacturers internationally. India came out 2 years back with the Indian standard strategy, which had 4 elements on standard development, on conformity assessment, on technical regulations, and creating a quality mindset. And today's presentation basically is about point number 2 and point number 3 regarding conformity assessment and regarding technical regulations as to how they are interweaved. Now, this is typically the case when people talk about standards. What the regulatory bodies normally announce is the bare minimum which is required for patient safety. So like I was hearing from the previous speaker regarding textiles also, there may be multiple standards brought in by quality control orders or by technical regulations or by that would all come into the free space over here of regulatory mandatory standards. And the manufacturer may want to be an aspiring brand and seek to be bigger than what the bare minimum is being asked for. So he will set his own quality goals, his own performance parameters with his competition internationally, and define voluntary quality standards which are recognized internationally, and then define his quality norms and quality specification even beyond what is defined in those voluntary standards. And that sets his brands apart from his competition, whether in India or internationally. That's his vision. So in India, in the absence of regulations, we realized this need, how it was being done internationally. And we brought in an ecosystem. We joined hands with Quality Council of India, and we brought in third-party certification, which was a voluntary QA certification. And being voluntary, like I showed to you, the quality aspects and quality requirements much more higher than what is required in the mandatory requirements, number one. Number two, they were based on the ISO standards. Most of the Indian regulations or quality control orders are based on BIS standards. And sometimes that is being criticized that BIS standards are not recognized internationally. So the ICMET scheme was designed so that the compliance would be to the international standards. And by having compliance with international standards, mutual recognition agreements could be there. And because of accreditation to an IAF system, and India being part of that IAF system, that advantage would be available to Indian companies and to build our global competitiveness. So there already was a base standard called the ISO 13485 Quality Management System Standard. We built on that and we put in additional regulatory requirements. So on 184 requirements, we put in additional 23 requirements in terms of system standards. Similarly, for 9001, for the low-risk devices, we put on nearly 36 requirements in addition to what was there in the ISO 9001 standard for the low-risk devices. And with this, we want to bring in a goal and a vision over there where internationally, as ICMET gets to be known internationally and within India, healthcare buyers and medical device manufacturers or people wanting to market Indian products would be having faith in ICMET certified companies. Now, this is typically a case where how it's been done internationally. So you have compliance mechanisms which normally are working on minimum government and maximum governance like our Prime Minister wanted. So you unbundle regulations whereby the government is the legislator, the parliamentary party. You have a regulatory body under this. In our case, it is CDSCO. And then you delegate the task from the conformity assessment body, which will support the regulator in terms of compliance. More so critical in medical devices because of the diversity of technologies, because an inspector would be virtually needing to be a superman to have knowledge in electronics, and then in IVD reagents, then in rubber, then in steel, then in terms of implantation, in terms of intraocular lens. So the diversity of medical devices ranging from something like a wheelchair to a syringe needle, to a pacemaker, to a defibrillator, to an implant or a heart valve is so diverse that you require specialists not only from the point of view of auditors, but also from the point of view of certification bodies. Every certification body cannot be a specialist in everything. So the competency has to be mapped, and then the regulatory body can delegate this task to the CABs. India, it has been done now successfully for the low risk and the medium risk devices. For now, the government has retained with the CDSCO, the regulatory authority, the conformity assessment for the high risk devices. But we can see the challenges which are already ongoing and which I'll detail now shortly. So manufacturers demonstrate compliance to the regulatory authority through these certification bodies, through these auditors. And this satisfies the consumer in terms of getting access to patient-safe and quality products. So these are the elements where third-party certification by a CB is done to support the regulator. Training is provided, audit is done, conformity assessment is done. These certification bodies who do the conformity assessment, they have are part of an accreditation system. In India, it is the Quality Council of India. You have got the National Accreditation Board of Certification Bodies. They will supervise the working of the certification bodies and ensure that the competence of the auditor and the system of audit is in compliance with international systems. So there's a mechanism, there's a structure, how many mandates of audit is required, number of auditors required to do that based on the size of the organization, size of the company, the scope of the audit. All that is part of that framework which is followed internationally. Then they will seek improvements from manufacturers. So there is normally no such thing as immediate closure of a company. That is not their objective. In every audit, they would seek that whatever observations and non-conformities they've noticed, they would require the manufacturer to address them as closure of the NCR, depending upon the risk proportion of the non-conformity noted over there. And once that has been done, thereafter, there's a question of post-market surveillance, both by the regulator in terms of the marketplace, whereby they will see what kind of complaints are coming in for that particular company or that kind of product, and then seek systemic improvements on that by doing adverse event monitoring. And in very, very rare cases where things are bad or badly managed, that regulator would need to step in and seek for suspension of the license, and the conformity assessment body, they would seek for loss of certification and ask the manufacturer to get themselves recertified. Now, this can be very harmful to a business because you lose your face, you lose your name. Not only that, you lose market access. And that is the most important part for a businessman. You cannot survive if there's no cash coming into the business. So it becomes in the owner's interest to be compliant to these kind of requirements. So what is conformity assessment all about? Now, it can be based on safety and performance, or can be based on regulatory requirements. And basically, they provide this assurance and confidence both to the supplier and to the buyer. And they can include these mainly 4 elements, whether in terms of conformity, in terms of software or electronic equipment, it is in terms of interoperability, it can be inspection, it can be accreditation to systems. And these become the 6 steps to achieve that. So you can have a self-declaration, then you perform an inspection and testing, you get yourself third-party certified, you seek regulatory approval and registration, and then the certification body itself gets supervised through an accreditation system. So auditors are supervised by the CB, CB gets supervised by the accreditation body, and the regulator supervises the accreditation body and the CB. This becomes our structure, what we have in India. So basically 3 elements you have over here. On the left lower side are standards. So who makes standards? It can be by an association, it can be by a certification body, it can be by a manufacturer himself. So various organizations can create standards, whether it can be on skills or products or management systems. And then you can have the government step in and then define, there'll be a technical regulator, whether in terms of a quality control order or in terms of an act like the Food Safety Act, or you have the Drug Act, or you got medical device regulations as part of the Drug Act. And through this technical regulations, you seek conformity and compliance. And conformity and compliance can be then, like I mentioned to you, through inspection bodies, demonstration through testing laboratories for compliance to standards and to specifications, and then to a system whereby you show consistency of quality, not just one particular batch is compliant to a particular test report. And that conformity of compliance to a QMS standard is then linked to an international system, whether an ABCP in India, or to an ILAC in Asia, or to an IF globally over there. And this is how it's interwoven over there. So just what I explained to you, you can see over here in a magnified sense, the details of each element properly over here. So it can be BIS, it can be QCI, it can be IMET, it can be a manufacturer. Same thing for conformity assessment. These are the various organizations and stakeholders who are part of the ecosystem of conformity assessment in India. And in terms of the regulator, whether you do direct monitoring or through third-party certification. So like in management, an MD can delegate his tasks to a vice president or general manager who knows the job better than him. Regulator can delegate the task to a certification body, who in turn can delegate the task to an auditor who knows that product and the technology and the system requirements better than the CB bosses or administrators, or better than the regulator, who themselves are sometimes regulatory experts, but not technical product experts. And through a system of post-market surveillance, then regulators then monitor the safety of the device after it's been released in the market. And this kind of material diligence on adverse event reporting provides the feedback and 360-degree views as to how effective the system is taking place over there. Now, coming back to the question for which you had called for the webinar, there is no one solution. So you do have the challenge whereby certification bodies in India sometimes get a bad name because people can get fake certificates by just paying a small nominal fee. you get certificates from dubious certification bodies who claim accreditation to international accreditation bodies, which themselves are not sometimes part of the IAF system. So we always recommend any credible manufacturer, if he seeks credibility and not just a quick buck, he will only be recognized if he carries a certificate from a certification body that has got accreditation to the NABCB system in India. If I see a certificate from a company like UK Cert or from Autobu, I would be pretty much laughing in my mind at that manufacturer. I know that either he's innocently being taken for a ride or knowingly he is taking a shortcut, paying money and getting a false certification, which may fool some people for some time, but not everybody all the time. So even if he may get an order through GEM sometimes, because maybe the person in the GEM early days, they would not know which certificate is fake, which is not fake. But now through the vendor assessments that they are doing, they're getting more confidence and trying to weed out such kind of manufacturers who are pseudo manufacturers armed with fake certification. So this is the challenge which is required over there to clean up the marketplace, because this fake certification and these kind of dubious certification bodies give a bad name to third-party certification. Otherwise, the IAF system, the NABCB system in India is doing great, and that needs to be strengthened. Now, in any certification body, you can have strong auditors and you can have weak auditors. That becomes the job of a regulator. A regulator, if he focus not on inspecting factories, but on seeing the quality of the audits and the quality of the audit reports and the scope of audits and the depth of audit, the kind of NCR that has been raised, the kind of NCR that has been closed, and the follow-on audit that's been done. Through that process itself, they can keep these certification bodies on their toes. Because if the certification body is not up to the mark, they can remove them from the notified status. So for example, you may be having, say, 40 certification bodies in India giving ISO 134 certificates. Out of this 40, maybe 30 may be having NABCB certification. Out of these 30, maybe 15 are only having a notification from CDSCO for giving QMS certification for Schedule 5 as per the regulatory requirements under the medical device rules of India. So out of these 15, maybe 10 may be having the accreditation to give ICMED certification. So you can see that there is a filter which is being put up over there as the certification gets tougher. The next challenge that we have for India is in terms of regulators themselves. So you have the certification bodies that are supervising the auditors. You have the accreditation body, NABCB, that is going to be supervising the certification body. You've got the regulators who are going to be regulating and supervising the accreditation body and certification bodies. And they find that somebody is being weak, they can pull him off the notified list or make a complaint to NABCB that how come you've given accreditation to the certification body, they don't deserve it. Now, the system, of course, is already running in place, but we still find challenges. And the challenges come because currently the regulations, MDR, is parked under the Drugs Act. Now, the Drugs Act is running in an old-fashioned manner for India, which is not in compliance with the best practices internationally, because unlike food, there is no national regulator. You do have CDSCO, which is acting like WHO, more like an advisory service. Sometimes they step into the role of being a national regulator, but in most cases, they will wash their hands and put the onus on the state regulator. It's the state licensing authority who becomes the regulator in India. So you have more than 30 such regulators in India. Now, these regulators in India from the state level sometimes may not have the expertise which may be there in the central government level, or which is required in the certification body level, or in terms of the domain of medical devices, in the diversity, like I just told you. Regulating software is a challenge. Regulating MRI machine is a different challenge than regulating from an X-ray machine. X-ray machine is a different challenge than regulating from a heart valve. Heart valve is a different challenge from a pacemaker. Pacemaker is a different challenge than from a thermometer. A thermometer is a different challenge from a hot water bottle. A hot water bottle is a different challenge from an orthopedic implant. And an orthopedic implant is going to be a different challenge than from a a sterile catheter. So diversity is so huge that the state regulators, if they step into the space over here, it's going to be creating also a havoc. So who will supervise these regulators? That becomes important. So you need to have a national regulator whereby the national regulator is supervising their state regulators who are answerable to them, like in the FSSI system. Then you can have harmonized regulatory implementation. And once you have harmonized regulatory implementation all over the country, not varying from state to state, then you can be having a confidence over there. Yes, the system is possibly working, whereby patients are assured that if something is made in Baddi, it may not be giving a confidence of that this may be lower quality than what's being made in Chennai, and what's being made in Chennai is a lower quality than maybe what's being made in Maharashtra, because Maharashtra regulator is a tougher one, and that one in Tamil Nadu is a not so tough one, and what is in Tamil Nadu may not be as tough as Himachal Pradesh, and you have Gujarat. So people who want investments to come in for the industry, to invite industry to come in, you want to be so industry friendly that you don't regulate them strongly over there. So you cannot have a system over there in the country where you're playing a bias. And that's where it becomes to have a system whereby you have some autonomy and you allow the system to proceed, like I mentioned to you earlier, in an unbundled manner, where the legislation is separate from the regulator and the regulator is separate from the certification body. So going back to the key question, both are required, but both have to take advantage from each other. Thank you for listening in, and I'm available to take your questions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for addressing us. And very truly said, both the industry as well as the regulators do have a role to play to ensure there's actually compliance at both the levels. And definitely diverse regulators in terms of states is really a challenge if this is what the scenarios is happening. And we need to get some kind of a momentum. The material vigilance is something what we would always talk about, but this is really enlightenment from all of us, and for specifically when you're addressing these sections. In case there's any other questions from the audience, then let us look it up.
Yeah, I can see some questions over here. I'll try to address them to the best of my ability.
Sure.
The first question I notice over here is that regulatory parties do third-party audits. Now, regulatory bodies don't do third-party audits. They can delegate the task to third-party auditors.
Right.
So if you bring in experts who know the subject matter and the industry better than you, nothing wrong with that. So reputation of NABCB as an accreditation body is definitely higher than a dubious, very fancy looking certificate of some US accreditation body, which is not even part of the International Accreditation Forum or the IF system over there. So don't get fooled by very fancy looking certificates. The next area is regarding the issue about standards and regulations. So the question that is being asked over here is the role of regulatory agencies. Now, sir, your name is missing over here, but let me tell you what there is a very old-fashioned system. Now you can do some sort of a post-market surveillance from drawing samples from the market and seeking for compliance to a product standard. The challenge comes in medical devices. There are more than 6,000 families of medical devices. When we did a survey, there were not even 10% for these 6,000 devices, Indian standards available in the country. So you have so much innovation taking place like a mobile phone, and so much upgrades and features taking place all the time in technology in medical devices, that it becomes virtually impossible for standards to be in place for a recent technology. Standards are there for something which has been there in the market for 20, 30 years, but not something that has been launched 2 or 3 years back. That does not mean that you should not get access to that what is being launched 2 or 3 years back or 6 months back. You can't wait 20 years for a standard to be published and then marketing to be allowed by a regulator. So that's where the system has to come in, whereby you don't just rely upon a company to have a one-off testing in a third-party laboratory to say that I'm compliant to a particular product standard. And then you draw a sample and you say, okay, he's compliant to a standard that's fit to market. You go in over there by a quality management system, number one, and number two, by following essential principles for patient safety. The essential principles for patient safety have got various elements built in over there, whereby you have to prove that your design is safe. The product is made to follow the design. The various risks in which the product can fail in terms of usage due to lack of design or lack of materials being appropriate or lack of training being appropriate, that risk mitigation has been addressed. And when such kind of risk mitigation is being managed and being addressed, then there is a comfort for the certification body, the manufacturer and the regulator to allow the product to be available to enter into the market, to give them the market approval and market authorization. Then you have the post-market surveillance, whereby, forget about testing, there's doctors, medical users, patients who will inform the regulatory body when they come across a challenge in using the product. Whenever they face an adverse event in using the product, they can not only file a complaint to the manufacturer, they can file a complaint to the regulator. And through this process of getting the feedback from the market, the regulatory body will seek systemic improvements. So tires will puncture. You cannot stop a tire from puncturing. You can only begin a technology that you can have tubeless tires or tires that don't puncture easily. Or if they puncture, they can still ride a few miles before you have to pull out a nail. So such kind of risk mitigation is done by alternate technologies, alternative means over there. Now this cannot happen overnight. That's where industry, regulators, users, they have to work in as a team together to address which are systemic issues over there. So what you put over there is something very, very simplistic. In a robust system, you have to allow this risk mitigation to take place by having this trust built in. So before you bring in accountability, you have to bring in responsibility. So regulators need to work in an honest, responsible manner. Manufacturers need to work in an honest, responsible manner. We need to be confident that if we, like telling a doctor about our symptoms, the regulator will not put us behind the bars. If we tell them about our symptoms, the regulator will help us to address the issues. And the conformity assessment body and the certification body on auditors will also help to address the issues, that people will be willing to show all the records in an honest manner. And once that system is running robustly, like we've seen in Europe and many countries where we sell internationally, the auditors come to us, that trust is allowing us to improve ourselves. And we can see where we've improved over the years and the decades and how we've become globally competitive, even my own company, which sells to more than 120 countries worldwide. So that is what is going to be helping India and going to be helping consumers, not just a one-off testing against a particular standard.
Very true. Very true. Very truly said, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for addressing us and giving us really insightful in terms of understanding what is the not only just the Indian standard strategy is, but also actually a synopsis of what we should be looking for and addressing them in the coming years. Thank you so very much. Thank you very much. I would like to invite Mr. Kajal Devnath for his session. Aarti, can we have a profile of our speaker? Mr. Kajal Devnath, who's the North Zone Chairman of IFPA, and that is the All India Food Processors Association. He is the CFTRI Food Technologies Professionals Experience in the areas of regulatory affairs and nutrition, food safety and quality, innovation, product development, and process analytical technology. He is a qualified lead auditor in FSMS and QMS. He is also the heads as the scientific and the regulatory affairs functions of DFM Foods Limited, Noida, a portfolio company of Advent International USA, as a chief regulatory officer. He has around 3 decades of experience in the food industry. And for the last 2 decades, he has been able to create a value to business to establish regulatory processes, regulatory compliance by design, health and nutrition claim, regulatory advocacy, food safety and quality while working with Mother Dairy, CII, DSS Foods, Uncle Chips, etc. He has been provided a scientific support as an Indian delegate in the Codex annual meeting at the Geneva and well regarded in FSSAI as a strong subject matter expert. Sir, we welcome you aboard and we will look and share upon your views.
Thank you, Atulji, for your kind introductions. And I think it's a privilege for me to be part of such quality discussions organized by consultant consortiums of Chennai and MSCC. I think, and I heard my earlier speakers also, there has been a very meaningful discussion has been headed. So if I come to a food sector, we had a big history of our journeys. So I represent All India Food Processors Association, which was way back in 1943 was established, and it is driving by food scientists and technologists. Its whole sole purpose is to ensure that food processing sectors is something like which is currently we are as a food industry, we are having so much of food wastage, which is more than equivalent to UK or some of the European countries' consumptions. So I think a lot of more service technology, something like that, we had improved. So on that note, I think this association was formed. We work very closely with regulators. We closely work with various other governments and associations to ensure that nationally we bring the issues resolved and make a progress. So in the beginning, I was talking to ma'am also that we aspire to be, for quite some time, we are talking that we are, largest producers of so many things like dairy, milk. We are the largest producer of these products. We are largest producer of the pulses. We are largest producers of spices. We are second largest producers of products like, various fruits and vegetables and other things. So there is an endless list. The only point I was trying to make, having so much of potential, why we could not become a global food factory? The question ends there that we are not able to meet the global quality. So to maintain the global quality, what we should be doing, and why there is a discrimination of what is for domestic quality, the cashew nuts, what we eat, or the alfonso, what we eat, is something people always say that export quality is much better. So why it should be like this? Why can't we make one standard for across? I think in that directions, the discussion has started, journey has started. We had so much of nodal agencies to regulate these. We had FPO, food product orders. We have a VPO, Vanishpati product orders. We had an MMPO, milk products orders. We have a meat products orders. So likewise, we had so much of orders over that BIS. Then this discussion has come to then IFA. We took a stand and we said, let us formulate one regulatory framework, which is FSSAI Act. So IFA had contributed in developing that FSSAI Act, Food Safety Standards Act in 2006. And subsequently, this nodal agency, FSSAI, has been formed, and it started its office from FDA Bhavan in 2008 onwards, and 2011 onwards. Association, we have been part of it to formulate various regulations, and it's licensing regulations, it's labeling regulations, it's product standard regulations, it's auditing regulations, so and so forth. But I think 2010 onwards, I think it has picked up and it has really came at par. One of the biggest thing which came out is the codex harmonizations. So codex is one of the elementaries, is a platform which has been formed by WHO and FAO, and then this has been only to ensure that to protect the consumer, for food safety and quality. And this is something like has been formed, and codex has formulated a lot of standards. So the process is that this is every country who are the signatory, they can raise and they can put up their standards, and it undergoes a lot of steps to ensure it qualifies to be an international standards. Other countries can adopt that fully or partially depending on that regulation. So we as India was not a signatory earlier, and after FSSAI formed, we became a nodal agency also for codex. India became a signatory, Minister of Health has signed it off, and now we also are adopting a lot of international standards. So if you look at the regulations before 2011, we had no our national standard to say what are the additives will go to some lassi or some of the snack products or some of the other food products, be it dairy, meat product, beverages and all. But as earlier it was a PFA and it was not very clear, it was not aligned to international standards. So that is one of the biggest thing has happened, and I think more than 10,000 of additives has been adopted, and it's continuously being reviewed and through e-working group, physical group, Indian industries are participating. Very recently we had our I think 50th Codex general meetings was happened, and there were a lot of such discussions and way forward things have happened. So if you bring it to the standards alignment to food industry, I think journey has really started and took it off, and it has been very encouraging, and that is the only reflections where we could see that our Ministry of Food Processing recently, even Prime Minister has also acknowledged in World Food India, the expo in Bharat Mandapam very recently on 3rd November, saying that the exports has risen from 13 to 23%, and it is going to increase. So it means that earlier what we were not able to match the quality and the food safety with all this advent of the regulatory standards revisions. There is the participation of our Indian food industries to match up the international quality. I think this has really paid off. And then over and above, there are some lot of PLI scheme is there, production link schemes, which encourages to take your products, which are very important, like one of the things like millet, which we are talking about, International Millet of the Year, which is because of India only it has gone, which is one of the things it has gone ahead. And now India is taking a lead on that. And IFA also, we are part of this awareness generation. We're doing a lot of activities in various states along with Ministry of Food Processing. So the point I was trying to make that this journey has started. We are making effort in the global footprint. Now coming back to do things, how this has to be done, how we should do this. As my earlier speaker also has given emphasis that one of the major thing is that capability building is something which is lacking. So now if I do an assessment of any food factory, what are the gaps? If we are able to have some kind of food safety award or some quality award, something like which associations, there are a few associations are doing, but I think from government level also, I think we should encourage to have such kind of things. I was in discussion with Quality Council of India to implement such things with IFA, but it remained to be in the discussion. So I think things are not moved, but some incentivization has to be done, because if you look at our food pyramids, in the bottom there is street food vendors and very low category MSME sectors are there. They also need to have some kind of assessment. So I would rather say that we have framed in BIS one standard which we call is the street food vendors, where we just gave some 14 points. Basis on that they should qualify. Similarly, we can pick up FSSAI, the standards of GMP, which you can pick up. These two we can jointly adopt to have some kind of standard to have a bottom. So why I'm saying this bottom of pyramid, these people, once they have a business, then they start from food vendors, they shift to becoming a restaurant or some kind of a small a packaged food manufacturer. So from the beginning, they do not have this concept of food safety, GMP, using of clean water, cleaning of utensils. These are the whole gamut of things which leads to a better quality. So now if international people are coming to our to visit some of the historical places, let us say tomorrow Ayodhya, this Ram Mandir will be inaugurated. A lot of international people will come. This will become tourists. So tourist places and food connects as well. So we have our own delicacies, all food product or traditional products. I mean, many traditional, even for government wise, we are just encouraging to those things to come. And standards are also for these traditional products are also being discussed. But more importantly thing is that it is more important in case of food the food safety part of it. If somebody consumes, it may have little less of salt or some tangy taste and all that you can compromise. But you can never compromise if I become sick of eating that food. I think that there, I think more role, more understanding of food business is something lacking, and that awareness comes. So I would like to have that. We should have a rock bottom, standards of some kind of delivery mechanism, that we cannot say that a ice cream fellow who moves around with a mother dairy ice cream, he can simply be ignorant of the food safety. He said, my ice creams are inside the box and it is, I need not to do. So whenever he goes back, he never cleans that. I don't think that in the microbiology area also, there are some kind of at low temperature bacteria are there who never knows. So those kind of things of contamination awareness level is not there. So what I meant to see that is something where the major mistakes is happening. The midday meal, where we never discuss. We said midday meal is there, but we find a lot of news is lizard aa gaya, kabhi ye aa gaya, all that kind of stuff. We need to have that the bigger mass of India is completely unaware of the food safety. And once that kind of thing, that MSME, what does it require? It requires hand-holding. It requires capacity building. I think, and that area, has there been a lot of emphasis? Yes, there has been little emphasis, like FSSAI has formulated one fast-track training, and that they have put some mandatory things. I think that is there. But what is more required, that which from our association also we are trying to help around, and what we incentivize is, like, if fast-track training is required, then we subsidize, we encourage people to participate. So more and more such people comes, and then more awareness comes. I think there, that level becomes, that will give a completely, and many of these people, MSME, they supplies raw material to next level, the medium and large food industries. So once the MSME themselves, they make mistakes, the raw material goes to the door of medium and large scale, and they have many times, because of various business requirements, they compromise. They use it. Okay, let's use this batch with another batch, and then I think that dilution keeps coming. So if I do a root cause analysis of these issues, I find that I need to strengthen my MSME sectors, the street food vendors. All this requires very hand holding, and lot of initiatives so far has been taken. I think we need to enhance that, make it to the next level. And once they are very ready, I think we do not have much issues with the large and the medium food business operator, large industries. You go to any 5-star hotels and all, we have a HACCP systems, we have a GMB systems, we have international food safety systems. And these 13% to 23%, whatever exports is happening, it is happening from that medium and large industries. But we can also handle these cottage industries, make sure that they are GMP qualified, they are HACCP qualified, so that they can also directly export. And then you bring more, what we aspire, that we'll double the farmers' income. I think these are all related. Agriculture also, we need to improve. Post-harvest technology, you need to improve. Supply chain efficiency has to improve. And then whatever I spoke about, food safety, quality, and all that. So coming back to regulatory and conformity assessment, private versus regulators, I think on that line, food FSSAI, I think way back in 2000, I think 17, 18, we have first time came out with what we call as a third-party assessment criteria. So the CABs can apply and pass through that process and become a third-party approved, FSSAI approved third-party auditor. And now FSSAI has taken that for domestic purposes. I will come to later on the export. I think on export, our regulator has nothing to do. It is more of anybody who wants to export to US, they have to listen more to FDA and the buyer's requirement. Similarly, if it is Europe, to the Europe requirements, or Japan to Japan requirement, which I think they are maintaining it, and then it is happening. There are some kind of concerns are there which we keep raising at time to time, and I think one of the things, like FSSAI recently had said, that if FDA can come and inspect my industry, who will be exporting to US, whenever they come and export to our industry, our country, so we also send it to Japan, our FSSAI officials, or or US to audit their third party, I mean their facility. I think that things which has just come, which we welcome as an industry. I think that is competitiveness, which speaks about the volume. What we also aspire to be a global standard. I think in that sense it is good. I think there is no problems. But the point is that these third party auditor who are there, they are not made mandatory as far as industry is concerned. So I'll also come back to the same thing, that I think what from industry we have been saying that it is the self-assessment, self-declaration of my status should be very clear, and that has to come. And on that note, I think what FSSAI has done, FSSAI has said that you do a testing of your products every 6 monthly and upload to my Fosco system, which we oppose. I said 6 monthly testing has got nothing to do says how my factory has been run. It is like I will go through the requirements of FSSAI Schedule 4, which is normally being called as a the food safety requirements, where we talk about how the facility is there, what water, what cleaning schedule, pest control, storage, transportation, raw material quality. All the many sections are there. On that basis, we do, and this is in similar to our BIS and to the requirements of ISO 22K alignment. Here and there, more stringency is there, but FSSAI has also become more stringent by including allergens and many other things. So I think as far as standard is there, I think it's not, I would say it's very 10 or 20. So I think it is very close to international requirements. As you wanted to emphasize by adopting more best practices, you become more compliant. So, but important thing is that it has to comply to the food safety requirement. So basic food safety requirement itself, if you do that, the international thing like this, you may put some mistake proofing technology, a Pokayoke of Japan, by saying that if a factory workers does not wash his hands because of his through camera and other technology, the door will not open. So you'll force him to wash his hand. And likewise, those are the things we adopt as a best practice. But FSSAI says that the worker should have a hand washing. He should be trained on hand washing. Post-tech training has to be done. And then he should follow by wearing hairnet and do some without touching, there should be facility and all that. So the point is that it has been laid in the regulation. Now adopting and how part is left to the industry. So the message, if I say that if I want this and I not this, so that sometimes are there for export to a buyer requirements. Yeah, I want my buyers to have at least a no touch automatic line, and then only I'll buy this. So that could be a requirement. But to say that if you go to cashew nuts, this is otherwise. If it is by hand, it has been handled, you might have a contamination of microbiological things which you do a PET, TPC count, and you confirm that okay, there is no pathogens and it is completely low TPC, and then it conforms to the requirements. But automatic lines of cashew nuts will break and it will have a less commercial value. So at times, depending on products to products, I think in case of dairy, there is no compromise. But in case of low water activity products, where the products which can self-stable and will not be prone to microbiological contaminations, there I think technology approaches are different. Now various different technology for juices are also there. So I think technology orientation is the way forward to control the food safety risk. And by doing so, you also meet certain quality standards and all that. I will also narrate one of the things which I confront with FSSAI, and I was working with my earlier company in Mother Dairy, and there was one standard which Codex has defined that certain, the peas, green peas, and then cauliflower has to have certain sizes and all that. They have defined. So this is something like what we call as a vertical standards for international product shipment. And then those are the 4 codex. You can adopt that codex. So FSSAI completely adopted as it is. This has created a lot of problems, because once you make these, what we'll do with the other sizes, how we can drain them. There is no bias for this. It will increase, and completely the frozen vegetable industry will get destabilized. Then we explain them that we need to have a balance of horizontal standards and vertical standard. Some of the things which is required does not affect the food safety part. However, for the cost part, these things. But for exports, if the buyer is ready to pay for that, and we are able to do that with certain grades and all, which you do for various products, and hence in earlier days, it was egg mark, one standard was there. It was only grading and certification of kind of things, which today I think it is a kind of obsolete. Nobody follows egg mark. I think we have much advanced standards in BIS, and FSSAI has that. I would also appreciate, one is the very ruthless standard process is BIS. I've been part of it, some of the committees also. What BIS has given, it is very easier for FSSAI discussion to adopt some of the BIS thing, marry with some of the codex thing, and come out with a very nice standard. So that's why in today's scenario, whatever FSSAI we are coming, it might give some jolt to some industries, and we always round it off like labeling discussions. We said we don't want certain backup panel like RDAs, and then we do not want the expiry date to be printed. But I think that was the story of 2018, and now it has come out in 2020, and today in 2023, all the packs domestic, everybody has implemented. So there has been some kind of denial happens, and then we come to an international standard. So today, whatever packs you pick up and you take to UK and or USA, you check our products labeling wise, at least we are at par to international standards, where number of servings, nutritional data, the contribution to RDAs, and then a little bit of front of pack discussion we have started. But I think that is something which is voluntary across the world, and so it is there in our side. So coming back to conformity assessment or process assessment, product conformity assessment for international, I think this is a set process is there. All the companies they go through the requirements of the buyer, where it is included the countries that national standards requirements, as well as that buyers, particularly brands requirement. And then the industry adopt, and we encourage, and we go through that, and then there are this passes through. I think that there we do not have any kind of things. But as far as Indian own domestic requirements are there, I think one of the things which FSSAI has made mandatory is only for dairy sector, fruits and vegetable sector, and then you have got meat product, fish products. Those sectors only it is microbiologically prone, more susceptible is there, and hence they said it is mandatory and you have to get it done, and then based on your score only it will come. Like if your score is within this, you need not to do next year, so next to next year it will come like this. For other sectors it is left voluntarily. Like I can do a third party auditor by appointing a CAB which is appointed by FSSAI, I mean approved by FSSAI, and upload these reports to my annual return, which helps to that industry. So process has been done, but this is kept voluntary because of various this sector. I mean, we are looking for some MSME, other sectors where industries association is speaking that let us do it as a risk assessment basis. Let us not make it as a mandatory. For example, FSSAI in their own annual report, they are saying that for contaminants of pesticides and various other contaminants of heavy metals, they are consistently last 2020, 21, 22, these two reports has they found that more than 99-98% product samples from the various markets has met, and there has been no contamination things, which is the biggest things of these things. As far as quality is concerned, every product standard has to meet that quality. That is something which is very much required. The food safety part, which is there, which is something which has been concerning for industry, this has been done. Now, over and above this background where industry's own samples has been picked up neutrally, and it has been analyzed and found that it is within compliance. Despite that, they have put another mandatory things which they say every in their FOSCOS portal 6 monthly you have to send your test your samples, and twice in a year. So even if that product has not been produced, but it is there in your license, though that if the mango I don't produce in the particularly in the month of December or November, still I have to file get a 6 monthly test report. So I think on that is in WIP. regulation has come and industry has not accepted, industry put forward their views. So the overall framework of FSSAI in the form of enabling conformity assessment and then going forward, I think has been laid out, but adopting into holistically across the supply chain of all stakeholders, be it a small, large, medium, I think there has been some kind of discrepancies. Like for example, for these small industries to do this, these would cost him 10 to 20 to 15 lakhs. So his business would not be worth to really spend that much. He would rather think of investing such money. And also, these will not have any legal, testing this investment of will not have any legal, in a legal litigation. Also, you cannot place this. These will have no value. Again, that time you need to separately do this. So on that scenario, I think we have a big disagreement. And also, we are pushing that there should be a self-assessment kind of opportunity for food business operators should be there. And these will only help to really move ahead and should give opportunity to everyone. I think in that note, I think I wanted to stop here and would like to hear if anything I left and not covered. I think in the advocacy process with the association, we are able to take it up with FSSAI. FSSAI has been very, very cooperative to listen, and we together we jointly agree, and then there has been a lot of iteration has happened in the labeling regulations, and we never compromised to be made it to an international level. At the same time, we made it ensure that there has been support to ensure that all packaging materials are also getting liquidated and not a stress for regulation should not stress to the business. I think on that direction there has been some work of ease of doing business also we have put it. I think in totality we need to look at how quality and food safety for the food sector will usher the progress of these sectors with the joint hands of all stakeholders. And in this forum, I think it's very nice. I could put my view, and I would like to listen if there are any questions, and I can also answer on that. Thank you, Atulji. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Devnath. This was really enlightening and telling us what your food sector actually portrays, because it's a very different sector, and it comes out with a very different peculiarities of its own. And of course, safety is the primary concern that has to be addressed. But you can't have a regulation which is of a superficial nature. So you need to make sure that each of the peculiarities of the food product is basically categorized and ensured to be duplicated in such manner. And this is really interesting because it comes out. This is the challenges that each sector has its own requirements to be addressed and to come. I mean, like the various regulations that are required to be put forth is a step forward, and each of these steps are going to lead us to the journey ahead. True, very true. Thank you very much for your Mr. Devnath for your views, points, and we would look forward to talking and discussing more on these matters. I would like to put open forth any questions that are there who would like to get answered by a panelist.
Atulji, before that, we will invite Ms. Chatterjee if she's in a better signal zone, because we lost out on her conversation, and maybe I guess if she's free, we could request her to continue, and then we will move on to that.
Right.
Ma'am, are you there? Yes.
Yes, ma'am is available.
Because we missed out on the.
I hope I'm in a better zone.
Now we'll just want to go back and touch upon that. We missed out on that conversation part of it about the second party audits, and we were discussing about the need self declarations or second party audits or third party audits or regulatory audits. This is going to be the question to all the panelists.
All the panelists over here.
All panelists. We just wanted to understand the business maturity of the businesses also to address all this. Yes, over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, very correct. Maturity is the word, and I think also the business dynamics and requirements self-assessment is being looked at as a good alternative. And as I was telling that time, maybe I couldn't be heard that it is it is an essential way forward, because if you are wanting to increase the scale and depth of the supplier base, then that model has to be taken, because for a country as dispersed and as vast, if you're talking of sectors like textile, it'll be very difficult if you do not recognize self-assessment as a tool. And it's also very it has been seen that it's a very good tool, because that gives far better engagement and understanding of the actual stakeholders who are responsible for the compliances. So it is already there, and I think many of these platforms which are doing this are being recognized by some of the good brands. So it is gaining a lot of acceptance.
Yeah. So when you say self-regulatory, we're all using digital platforms and digital assessment, digital tools, right?
Yes, most of them are tangible parameters based, so that of course they many times are then verified also, but it is, yeah, largely data based.
You're just touching upon the supply chain part of it. Now, considering the fact that most of the textile companies, the government companies belong to an MSME segment and MSME sector. See, large enterprises today are struggling to show the compliance of the supply chain. It's a fact when ESG, when the SEBI has introduced the core framework, all the large enterprises are throwing up their hands and saying that, sorry, we cannot assure on the supply chain compliances. So we ask a fundamental question to a business enterprise. If you cannot give an assurance on your supply chain, then what kind of an assurance that you can give us on your product? Right? So when the large enterprises have this difficulty, because the supply chain compliance is also now is being introduced in the financial regulations. Maybe we are too early for that. What I'm talking today is what is going to be experienced by the businesses from maybe 2 to 3 years from now. So that kind of kind of a certification or a self-compliance or a self-certification is needed for the supply chain also, not just for the
yeah, absolutely. In fact, in the textile sector, that kind of a passport system, because in textiles you have a lot of job work, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers. So you're very correct, it is an imperative. It's just that this has been introduced in a good way for the social parameters. For the environmental, especially carbon and scope 3 is still a new domain.
Absolutely. No, it is. It is very essential, because from 800 parameters, we have just brought it down to 50 parameters. It's nothing, but that's a beginning. I just wanted to understand the maturity of the businesses to migrate to all this compliances. On a scale of 1 to 5 in a textile sector, how do you rate the business maturity of the MSME businesses which are also going global? Honestly, it's our self-evaluation on a scale of 1 to 5, representing an association. What kind of, it's just out of curiosity I'm asking you this question.
It would be 2. Excellent. 2 is largely because awareness is there, understanding and all is there, but in terms of doing it themselves, yeah, they are still very dependent on consultants at the moment. For the larger companies, in fact, many of them have done a very good voluntary work also, but yes, MSMEs, it will be 2.
Thank you. Thank you for
how
that.
does it differ again in a similar terms with in the food industry and with the medical device industries?
Yes. That's what, over to the other panelists on the same question.
I will, because listening to the subject, we're talking about supply chain. I mean, if the supply chain is there, and if you're talking about parameters, then I'm sure it will have a very difference in both the other sectors also.
Supply chain is actually the second level. At a primary level, manufacturer's level, 4 aspects. Business maturity, again, this question to Rajiv ji, again, considering the fact that most of the manufacturers in medical technologies are also MSME businesses, whether it is self-compliances and or we don't have that buyer audits and second party audits in medical technologies. At least to my knowledge, I have not come across this. And then they have a third party audits and they have regulatory audits. So how do you scale the business maturity of the MSME manufacturers on a scale of 1 to 5, Rajiv?
I would say for most it would be between 3 and 4. Medical devices, unlike textiles, is pretty much regulated in most countries one would like to export to. So you really can't go into the international market or want to be an international global exporter without having some level of understanding of regulatory requirements and quality management systems and what regulators are seeking from manufacturers to comply with. So anybody comes into medical device manufacturing is more and more so now. So youngsters, whether they're in IITs or in ISCs, they have a fair understanding about QMS systems. It is well explained to them during the education system itself. So even before they get industrial experience or before they become entrepreneurs, many of them have an understanding that this is a challenge which they have to be ready for as a developer, as a designer, as a manufacturer. So even if they are not going to be making the product or getting it just complete product made by somebody else or franchising their design or technology to somebody else, they still have to have a system in place in terms of structure of a safe design, a DOE, design validation, drawings, a system for control of drawings, control of documentation. Those structures, I would say, pretty much are placed even in small companies. I would say only in the very, very small companies, micro companies would be a challenge where I would agree with Mrs. Chatterjee, maybe 1 or 2 level over there, where for them even to write a policy statement, what is a quality policy, would be a vision statement, would be a challenge for the entrepreneur. Because the entrepreneur himself is a production manager, he is the quality manager, he is the marketing manager, and he's got 4 or 5 people who's doing everything for him. But when you go to MSME, where you do have a production manager or a quality in charge, even if you are yourself the CEO, everything, at least some level of delegation takes place over there, even with a very small staffing level. Larger organizations, once you cross 50, 100, 500, bigger organizations, they cannot function without systems in place. Systems can be rudimentary or they can be sophisticated. But when you have a QMS system, it helps you to begin structures, helps you to delegate, helps you to train, helps you to grow.
When we have 80% import dependency in the medical devices, we have a very small manufacturing ecosystem in the country, and predominantly the ones who are exporting, being in the export market, are the large enterprises, or I would say the medium size. By and large, this is something which the debate which we are seeing in the industry corridors is ease of doing business versus a regulated environment. In a regulated sector, frankly speaking, we always say as consultants, it's extremely tough for a cottage industry, for a micro industry to operate in a regulated environment, because the technical infrastructure or the willingness to invest into people investments, technology investments, infra investments, the appetite is also a little less. That is the reason why we are pertinently asking this question on the business maturity, because at the moment, it's a domestic market. Again, very few manufacturers who are catering even to the domestic market. How many of them can really go global with this kind of infrastructure? Maybe at the moment, countries, they've introduced the licensing. Maybe the licensing authorities are also maybe going a little flexible in the initial stages, is what we feel. This is our take. And we also say as consultants, let regulators go a little flexible on the licensing, but be tougher on the PMS, post-market surveillance. That is why we are asking, because the manufacturing ecosystem and medical devices is very less in the country. Do we really have the manufacturers with that kind of a business maturity? Today, if anybody is asking us in a textiles or a garment, products may be different. We say that they've reached a certain level of maturity, especially the garments and textiles.
I'm slightly disagree on that, because
I'm asking this
textiles
question.
will be having thousands of manufacturers compared to just 1,500 or so in medical devices.
Yes.
But being in healthcare, being a medical device, the people who venture into that from day one, they know that they have to follow a discipline, which may not be there to make furniture or may not be required to make a textile. So the mindset is different of an entrepreneur. When he knows that regulations are there, will be there in India or abroad, and if they are not there, they will come around. So he has to mentally prepare himself to be compliant to some level, at even rudimentary level. So I would disagree with your take on that. It's not the size of the industry which is making it mature or not mature. It is the demand of the industry. When you are in the patient safety sector, the demand for medical devices is much more higher than even FSSAI. That's why even the government is not letting us go and demanding that we should be regulated like drugs and not like food. So they think that food is too weak and too loose a category. But yes, maybe we've done a good job in educating the government on that. And the government itself is realizing that there is an initial phase of facilitation where the drug controller himself realizes that yes, on today's date, people are not dying because of poor quality devices, but yes, there's a demand from the healthcare system that they should get consistent good quality devices, but not deaths taking place. So unless it is becoming critical in terms of deaths, he is willing to let go to some level. And the first phase is of making responsibility. So we as an association and the regulator and the government is seeking manufacturers to become responsible first, before they ask them to become accountable. So first is responsibility, then becomes accountability. If you just bring in regulations overnight and said that I'm going to shut every factory because of being non-compliant, and I'm going to put every manufacturer who's non-compliant behind bars, this is going to be disruptive. So no manufacturer can be like that with his employees. No government can be like that with the industry also. It's not being soft or loose. In fact, that's a more matured way of handling the industry. You have to handhold, let it grow, let it learn to walk on its own, nurture it, water it. There will be bad weeds, remove the bad weeds. The people who are not willing to get disciplined, the people who want to break the system, people who are not innocent, they're doing it willfully, who don't want to be in the licensing regime. They don't even seek licenses and they want to be in the market and operate in the market. They are the ones who need to be plucked out. That's what the job of the regulator is.
We will ask you this question 3 years from now, because the regulation into the medical devices sector, but what we are seeing in the pharma is not really inspiring, because having been there for many years, and then we are all thinking about the business maturity of the pharma sector, because predominantly most of the players are again MSMEs, and but then what the market place confidence on the sector as such has come down because of the simple reason, but we expected a very high level of maturity, because being a regulated sector for many years. Medical devices, as we say, it is early entrant, a new baby into the full regulations 5 years from now, but the perspective is always this is an engineering sector. So the outlook is totally different. We also know that products are different nature. It's a deep tech industry. So again, maybe some kind of sanitization is needed, because market trust has to be high, means maybe those who are not really serious about it have to kind of get out of it.
Yes.
There's no other.
That's why we seek separate regulatory framework and regulations, because we've seen the mistakes that's happened in the pharma sector.
Yes.
We don't want them to be repeated to medical devices and to hold us back. We got higher aspirations and we want to learn from the mistakes. And maybe once our experiment, the government will believe in us and let us allow us to use that experiment on ourselves, then the good part of that can also be applied in pharma. We've seen that already in things like Sugam. Now you've got a centralized database which for medical devices, and now they want to apply that to pharma. Until 2 years back, it was a dream for DCGI to be told that he can have a regulatory system whereby on a click of a button, he can tell the minister that how many manufacturers there are for a particular medicine. He does not know, because there is no centralized database.
Absolutely.
There are 30 regulators in the country. Every regulator has got paperwork, not even online systems in most cases for documentation or for compliances and for licensing. There's not even a communication between their system and the central system.
Yes.
But in a new structure, with Sugam being started for medical devices, the structure was started for medical devices for centralized database. And the state government people played along. So if that proactiveness is there, these experiments can definitely be useful for everybody from the country.
The fact, actually, this medical device regulations have really shown that there's a lot of more maturity, because pharma inspections, when they started doing risk-based inspections few months ago, nobody knows how many pharma manufacturers are there in the country. We were just reading crazy, fancy numbers, 10,000, 12,000, then it went down to 5,000. Even now, there's no clarity as to how many pharma manufacturers are there in the country. So this is what it has been, a regulated sector for many years. There's no central registry, but medical devices has a lot of maturity from the day one in terms of structures that we can see, that all of us can see that. But on the business maturity, as I said, we'll come back to you after 2-3 years. We'll repeat the same question. Thank you. And then
Right.
Mr. Devnath, the same question to you also, please. Food is something we always consider the food regulator as most mature, one of the most matured regulators in the country, been there in the system for many years. But still, sometimes we feel that, are there enough controls? Looking at so many reports that we read in ASCII and various other complaints and grievances to the Consumer Affairs Ministry, is really food. Food business operators. Now we have offline, we have online, all kinds of players. Do we really have good controls, enough controls to offer that assurance? Again, FSSAI, we want to understand, being a regulator, what is it? We've been there as a system for many years. What is your take? Like, MSME businesses, again, most of the food business operators are MSMEs in the country.
Yeah.
So do they comply with self-regulations better? Or again, food does not have much of second-party audits, but again, third-party audits and regulatory audits. So what is your take? Again, the business maturity of this MSME businesses on a scale of 1 to 5. What is your take on this?
So I think one of the things I would say that largely the MSME sectors earlier days was more in the unorganized sectors. And now many of them has come to a mainstream because of the fact that very many states have encouraged food parks and various schemes by state governments and all. What happens, like big companies goes and set up a big companies, and then it requires other small manufacturers like carton manufacturer, the laminate manufacturer, the raw material manufacturer also wants to be in the same vicinity so that his supply chain becomes more cost effective. So now if big players goes, who is a self-sustained, has got international standards and also does a produce, products. So associate those MSMEs, definitely their level has increased. And I would say that there could be up to 7 or 8 because they are being handhold, being trained. And those sectors, the sectors which are left and they are of earlier times, they were organized sector. Now they have come to mainstream. Earlier they were unorganized, now they come to organized. Because if you look at these MSME sector is the biggest sector. In 140 crore people, once we have a meal, and we are surviving as a country. And although hunger index and all, it has got different story because people put our India in a different map, but it has been clarified and there has been some mistakes, and I think our hunger index has been improved, and that is different thing. But the point is that those people are also slowly getting into the mainstream, improving these things. Now what happened is regulator has made into two part of licensing. One is that if you're manufacturing this thing is 20 crore, then you can go for a central licensing. What is the objective of central licensing? Central licensing authorities are well structured officers. They can give handhold, they give trainings, they give audits, they give feedbacks, and then do unnecessarily harass. Another thing is that Inspector Raj people who are sitting in the state government authorities, that federal structures, we need to live with that. I think that is something which is concerning. To that extent, I think FSSAI central authority has made it two regulations that some people, they go for central licensing. They're better off to guide you, handhold with you. So many MSME sectors who are able to go for qualifying to that, I think there is a lot of remarkable changes there, because they don't want to get themselves harassed and unnecessarily because of these harassments of state government, the nodal agencies. I beg pardon to say that, but this is the reality. And hence, I think that has been some that the Inspector Raj system is something which is like they pick up samples today, and they will come out with reports after 8 months later, because Diwali is coming in 8 months later. No. So something like this, that thing is continuing to happen. So I think that will never allow you to progress, and you are always trying to be, in a appeasement kind of compliance. So that is something which will not work. So that kind of sectors is always not adding to value of quality, maturity, whatever you say. I would not rate, and we welcome people in our association to be part of it. Many, like as you rightly said, ESG, the plastic waste management, the SDGC, NGRBC, all these things we were talking about. Food sector to medium and large scale has adopted. The MSME sectors has started because the people who are associated with those, like for example, my company, we are ESG in the journey of ESG. So whatever MSME sector associated vendors, we do talk, we do invite them for our discussions, and we train them, and we said that you do this, provide these documents, we'll come for audits, do the kappa, and then submit the reports. So these kind of vendors will definitely, they are growing, and their levels are before our this initiative was, if it was 5 the scale, I would say that definitely they have gone to 7. And then this thing is the main point is that with this advent and the advancement and the technology adoption is something which is very encouraging. Now FSSAI recently has came out with the rapid toolkit, which is one of the very important things. I will give you examples, like there is a dairy industry, how it works. You go to various farmers at various villages, and you have a milk collection center. All the farmers will be said that you please come with your milk. These are the parameters. If it qualifies with your fat percentage and other compliance requirement, you will be, your milk will be this thing, and immediately to a digital payment you will get money. And this system has been developed. Now what was the problem was like antibiotic, pesticides, and these are the various kind of kits which was available in international market, and it has been adopted in other countries also. Slowly FSSAI have started adopting. NDTB, National Dairy Development Board, they have their kits. These are in the mainstream, these were available, people are doing. But now these are getting in the compliance. So what will happen, these kits will help for farmers to ensure that yes, my milk whatever we am delivering is been this. So once in the milk collection center this has been certified, maybe a 1 or 2 HPLC tests at main plant will help to ensure that this milk whatever is coming is completely compliant. And those are the hand in, like whatever field testing kits with the plant quality assurance protocol will merge and will strengthen the whole process. I think that journey has started. Very recently only these kits and all has come. These will undergo some processes and all that. And because of this MSME sector, like one food milk collection center, he started adopting their technology, that processes. And now because of that, the mainstream, who is the main dairy processor, he is getting a good raw material. Because of good raw material, his process technology, pasteurization, all other things are already are internationally qualified equipments, and hence the product has to come out. And that is something which we aspire to do. So what we lack in India, whether you MSME or this thing, but food sector in general, the raw material harvesting and ensure that it is being delivered as a raw material to your doorstep in a much more compliant manner to ensure the degree of quality and food safety. There we lack. So there we lack means that is going to have it. If you go to entire South India, how turmeric has been dried, it is put into the roads, or the chili are put into the roads of Gunturs and being dried in sun drying. But don't we have technology? Yes, we have a technology. Today solar dryers are also there. So why you are contaminating your agri produce by putting into this? They will say cost. I don't think that's the scenario. But big companies are developing agri channels, and the government is also putting some state government, central government, some platforms. I think agri produce has to bring some level of maturity, which will help food processing industry to go further. I think food processing industry is doing extra work of cleaning their our produce whatever comes, and then we do a cleaning process, unnecessarily reducing the efficiency, and there is a risk also, and then you do a testing protocols. Why can't we have a design protocol, what we call as a quality by design, food safety by design, where the critical control parameters has to be at attributes, has to be checked in a real-time manner, and then accordingly the output will ensure, and then you can have a feedback mechanism to ensure that what are the critical process parameter has to be checked. And this way, right from basic from the field raw material onwards to the factory, that we do not have this established. I think the technology discussions at various forums started happening, but it's not being done because this is not made in India. This is all being technology has been done now in US, Europe. So it is been very difficult to adopt now in India. Like Israel has got irrigation technology, but India has adopted, India is making. So I think it is similarly these process analytical tools, what you call, like you have equipments, you are harvesting your corn. At the same time, there will be a near infrared equipment which will be reading and will be segregating the corn based on their moisture or maturity indices. And then separately through that bucket, harvesting will be done in such a way that the corn itself will be graded at the field level itself. And then the
Very true, very true.
produce will be
The
shipped.
fact that technology actually induces in terms of improving the quality of the food product from
Yes.
the
Which is
initial
the basic, which
stages
is
to
the
the end
basic
stages.
difference between what the developed nations are doing and what we are not doing. But we are trying to
Right.
do the same technology work by doing manually, saying that cost will be less, and we end up doing not that quality. I think there, whoever has adopted this, there are many companies where they have adopted this technology. And then what you in the beginning said, there are a lot of failures are there. I think there we can stop by doing the real time things. And I think that there, I think we are doing is a being, it's being a packaging technology, it's a harvesting technology, or process technology. These three has to come out to the level. There are some adoption is happening, but association with the bigger companies and the regulatory framework has been driven in such a way. I think today MSME sectors of many are, they have improved a lot, and I would say that they have grown, many of them has grown to a maturity level of beyond 5 also, but some in the journey also. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Devnath, for your views. We basically would like this strategy to be online so that we can actually have a photo session, and meanwhile, we'll also drop in the poll which is required to be done.
Questions also. Poll, yeah. Maybe we'll do the
Yeah,
poll.
because
Aarti, please
yeah.
roll out the poll. Request all participants, delegates to share your, participate in the poll, please. Just takes about 2-3 minutes, 1 minute actually. Request all of you to participate. A small motivation and carrot for us while designing the programs. The feedback helps. If it's stuck at 24, it's okay, Aarti. This is fine. Yeah. Can you share the results, Aarti? I guess I clicked it. This is the result. Fine. Okay.
Can I stop it now? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Please stop it. There are a couple of questions in the chat box. Mr. Mahir Abbas, he's our fellow consultant. He has a question for you, Mr. Devnath. We come across adulteration in food products, which is a very common problem. What is the take of the Food Producers Association on it?
We completely discourage, and we don't encourage such spurious methods. As rightly in the beginning I said, food first, it comes for food safety. If food safety is there, you can always compromise a little bit of taste and texture, but not food safety compromise. So I think that is the utmost thing. And anything of adulteration is something of very past. This is, we are talking about of independence. Now we have come across so much, and with the era of now, we are so much India centric. I don't think this makes sense. And wherever you come across, I think we should discourage, we should brought back to our things. As from Association of All India Food Processor, we will fight to bring a justice to this, and we would like to bring them also to the mainstream to ensure that food safety is paramount, and we must deliver safe and wholesome food to consumer.
Thank you, Mr. Devnath, for that.
Questions? I guess Rajiv ji has answered some of this on
yes.
certification. I'm just checking. Maybe anybody else wants to ask any questions? Quick, 1 or 2 questions, please. We can ask. Anybody can raise hands. Yeah, of course. Yes, couple of them have raised hands. I saw somebody raising hands. Anybody would like to ask any questions? Yeah, please unmute yourself, Mr. Isekimuthu.
What is the question?
Ati, are they able to? Can you just check the settings? Any difficulty there? Mr. Isekimuthu, yeah, please, you can unmute.
Yes. No, yes.
Yeah, please. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, for accreditation of CABs, we are having accreditation bodies. The main topic of this today's session is whether the regulatory bodies should undertake the audit, third-party audits. Then where is the credibility of accreditation bodies and their reputation? This is my question.
Rajivji has answered that, if I remember right.
Yes, I did answer that. And if you've still not understood, let me just repeat to you once again. Regulators can use third-party certification bodies to delegate the task of compliance audits. They will not do third-party audits. So why will CDSO do a third-party audit for US FDA or for UK MHRA, international regulators? They can't do it for themselves, of course. They will only see compliance.
Okay, then the
clear.
No, see, what I want to clear is see, then see the role of accreditation body is to accredit CABs based on some requirements as outlined in 17,021.
Yes.
Right. Then again, regulators also taking part in the CAB activity. And how it is matching.
I'll explain it. Here the issues. Sorry, yes, please, Rajiv. Yeah, please.
So these are two different things. So, like another system that is currently being run for medical devices, for example.
Okay.
You have CAB, which are being delegated a task for compliance to the medical device rules, quality management systems.
Okay.
Or Schedule 5 and Schedule 4 partly. Okay. The regulator is doing everything else. Regulations is a broad task. This is only a part of the task which has been given to certification bodies. Certification bodies, their domain knowledge, product knowledge, and how the audit system works, that part of the scope is being supervised by the accreditation body.
Okay.
They don't have knowledge about the regulatory. Regulator will see from their perspective, accreditation body will see from their perspective. So you've got two bosses, one technical boss, one administrative boss. Technical boss is seeing technical things. Administrative boss is seeing administrative things. Both are jointly supervising. And the CB has to be answerable to both. Then only the system will run properly.
So you are telling regulators are the technical boss?
Not really. I would say they are the administrative bosses. It is the accreditation body which is doing the technical part.
Okay.
Which is making compliance to the accreditation system, the audit system.
Okay.
I will just clarify this, Mr. Isekimuthu. When the program was designed, the topic was designed, it was designed in such a manner because regulators also do direct inspections. Okay, so they have an option of doing direct licensing audits, or they have an option of depending on third parties. Because now
third-party audit reports.
Absolutely, they depend on third parties, which they hire notified bodies, and those notified bodies are accredited by national boards or other international accreditation bodies. The purpose of creating this conversation is we have a robust third-party conformity assessment system in the marketplace. Again, multiple operators, the confidence and the trust is actually becoming low, right? Now, the recent episode of regulators doing direct inspections, risk-based inspections in the pharmaceutical sector. If you have been listening to the regulators' conversations and presentations in the industry corridors, looking at the conversations made us wonder, are we trying to say that the basic quality management system practices are not in place? That's what this base inspection audit findings are all about. So
that was done by the regulators.
On one side, the manufacturers or the industry is carrying quality certificates, but on the other side, they are not meeting the regulatory audits, right? So the regulators, so the idea is basically whether should they depend on third parties or do they have to do also get into this direct inspections audits for which they are not from the conformity assessment space. Maybe they need to create in-house teams, capabilities, capacity building and all that, or to supervise the third-party audits. Third-party audits will continue to do the audits, but just to supervise and monitor whether what they are doing is correct or not. Regulators don't get into all this. So otherwise, where is the assurance? Who is actually giving the assurance we are asking? In the regulated sector, the assurance is the duty of the regulator. They may have third-party conformity assessment bodies or testing houses, anybody else as part of the supply chain. They may rely on third-party test reports or audit reports. That is part of their supply chain. So how are they checking their supply chain efficiencies is what the conversation is all about. So third-party conformity assessment audits, the trust is very low. So can we look at regulators to do the audits? If the regulators' audits are also not up to the mark, why should we put the industry in all this? The real assurance has to come from the manufacturer and the industry. So why should we kind of, put them on all this rigmarole, and they can very well go back to the self-compliance, declare that they are in compliance to various aspects.
I'll come in over here. One of the reasons why this perspective also coming is because most of the regulators are coming from the pharmacy background. Their inspection and eye of control is from the pharmacy background, not from an engineering angle. So when they're looking for compliance, it's not the quality management system, it is to GMP, as what is pharma is defined, or what Schedule M defines. From that perspective, and that creates confusion and a crisis for the manufacturer because even the language and terminology is not the same. They're talking in terms of site files, clinical trials, and manufacturers like us who are selling all over the world, we don't use such terminologies. I'll give you an example. You have the US FDA, which was inspecting medical devices like drugs directly. And even for them, they didn't have enough inspectors all over the world to do that inspection. So they could not sometimes inspect factories maybe 5 years at a time or 8 years at a time. So they were only following PMS and categories of products they would try to inspect at the same time all over the world. All glove factories in Taiwan 1 year. All orthopedic implants another year. That kind of an approach, sampling approach was being done by them. Now they've also gone the European way because the European way, UK naturally started this thing and then everybody else followed, of delegating the task to third-party certification bodies. Now even USA, Canada, they've all followed the task. So they allow manufacturers like us to go third-party certification like MDSAP certification. If you are MDSAP medical device single audit plan certified, that certification is recognized by Japan, by Canada, by USA, by Australia, by Brazil, and that will allow them to forego a direct factory inspection. So they don't use their staff for factory inspections. They use their staff to see your certificate, to see your compliance, and ask other questions other than what the MDSAP is covered, because regulations is a broader part, QMS is a smaller part. So they will do the job as a regulator and ask the other blanks to be filled up in direct communication. And once they're satisfied, they will allow you to keep on operating in the market.
Okay, sir. Thanks for your clarification.
Mr. Devnath, you wanted to add certain point?
No, my point is that in case of FSSAI has adopted this by they themselves wanted to accredit who should be done, who should not be done. So they came out with one regulation which gives you a qualification criteria. So the people CABs they apply and they themselves get approved by the FSSAI. Now with this power of accredit, they have approved. Now if any food business operator connects with the CABs, and they can get their premises audited, and the certain scores will be done, and that can be put it into the annual return or in the FOSCO systems. Based on that, it will only trigger in the digital systems of FSSAI. When will be the next audit? Till such time, you will not be visited by FSSAI, officers and all that. This is only
which is a much more clear way of getting things done.
Yeah. It's an excellent system and a very mature system. It's working very well. Where I find FSSAI is not working well, the people who are licensed or coming forward for being regulated, for them it's excellent.
You can go
the problem is the people who are out of the licensing regime, who are making fake whiskies, fake food, fake milk. They are the ones who are creating adulteration, and they're not being caught, and only the police tries to catch them. The system is not able to catch them on their own. So unless there's a complaint and the police comes into play, the association or the regulators are not having the ability
not able to do
weed out such people.
True, very true, very true, very true. Right. I thank you all of you for joining with us. Can we have a photo session because to get this thing done?
Chandrima ma'am has left actually.
I think she
messaged. Okay. She has to log off.
Okay.
I've taken a photograph. I'll share with you on WhatsApp.
Okay, that would be also good.
Couple of questions are there on the food. Maybe one or two questions.
Yeah.
Global gap certification. Is it?
I have got another these things call and session has already started. People are waiting for me.
Maybe what we will do, we will just send the questions. We can respond to some of the questions. We'll wind up.
Yeah. Thank you.
Atulji, we can just proceed with the vote of thanks, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much, esteemed speakers, and Mr. Nima who's left, but definitely definitely to join us and in this short space, dwell in a lot of information that has now needs to be filtered, and of course we need to have further discussions with each of you, and we can take up the call ahead in terms of getting some regulatory compliances to be looked for and addressed to. I thank all of the audience and the secretariat who has been behind the scenes working and making sure this webinar is to a fruitful end. I thank all of you to attend and who has asked the questions so that we can actually target certain aspects that we need to understand and we need to get to working upon. Thank you very much. Thank you, speakers, panelists, and audience. Thank you for engaging and participating with us. And we're looking forward for all of you to also welcome for the new other series programs that we have launched. Please do join us for another round of on regulations and compliances with the other industry bodies and with the compliance bodies that we'll be catering on the 9th. Thank you very much. Thank you, sirs. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for joining.
No industry. Industry session is over today. This is the
that's done. But I look forward again.
Right. Request you all to join us. Thank you. Thank you, Rajiv.
Thank you,
Mr. Devnath.
Thank you, Rajiv.
Thank you, Atul ji. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.